Today we're at SATCON 2009 in New York's Jacob Javits Center. I'm in the press room today speaking with Greg Ewart, who is with Iridium. He is the Executive Vice President of Global Distribution and Business Development. Greg, how are you?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the program. And we had a chance to talk a little bit about some upcoming products that your company is rolling out. Could you give us an overview, please?
Sure. I think one of the places that we talked about a little bit ago was hosted payload and the excitement that we see around the hosted payload environment. This concept is fairly new in the satellite industry itself. The value proposition being that multiple entities that in the past had traditionally put up their own satellite systems can potentially share the cost from an operating standpoint, cost from launch, a lot of the underlying costs associated with putting up your own dedicated service to defray those costs across a satellite constellation like ourselves. They get the benefit of being able to get the same data that they either want or they're used to getting. We get the benefit of having a ride on our payload on our satellites. You can think about the efficiencies from an operating standpoint. We already have an operations group that oversees our constellation 7 by 24, 365 days out of the year. You don't have to duplicate that. When you go to send up your rockets, your payload is going to be going up with our payload. You don't have to go out there and procure your own rockets and the costs associated with those. So it's a really unique different model that's come into, I would say, vogue in the last couple of years. You're starting to see indications that out in the marketplace. Recently, Intelsat, an FSS provider in the same satellite space, did a deal with the Australian military. I think the cost was a savings of approximately $165 million. So therein lies the beauty of this, being able to get the functionality and performance and the information that you're looking for, but at a drastically reduced price of what it would cost for you to put up your own system.
So we talked a little bit earlier about the concept of satellite as a service. It makes a lot of sense that governments and other organizations would want to defray the cost of having to do it all themselves. It's a very logical concept. Is education one of the challenges now?
Sure. Yeah, I think education is one of the big ones. It's a newer model, so just getting out there and talking to the right individuals and getting into the budget sequences that either different government bodies have or even the programs themselves have. That's been a challenge for us, just coming up the learning curve with respect to our customers, who these customers are. Once we get out and we tell the story and we show on paper, the value proposition that it brings to the table, what we see from the other side is excitement. So, again, I think that the big challenge that we have is just making sure that we can fit these into our schedule and their schedule from a timing standpoint. If you can, it's a beautiful marriage of opportunities.
Is data isolation a need at all, or is that not something that different organizations care about?
I think some will. I think that's going to be something that will be determined about the sensitivity of data or the different forms of data that will be coming off these systems. Some you can understand will probably never go the hosted route, but
of course,
plenty will.
Military and things like that, I would imagine.
Sure, but you can understand weather data, for instance. Being able to see different temperatures of the ocean. There are plenty of different applications and needs for that out there where you don't need 16 different countries with 16 different unique satellites up there doing the same thing. One system could do that and parse out the information on a paid-by basis or some other form of mechanism for being able to garnish that information.
It seems like an opportunity also to almost pool applications as well as the needs of specific governments, just trying to figure out how many applications do you need on the satellite, because it seems that the cost is now able to come down in this fashion, so there are probably applications that didn't make sense a few years ago, and now you can implement.
Sure, absolutely. Now, on the flip side of that would also be that there is so much payload that each one of the satellites can have on it.
Right.
So there will be a time when, as with any condo association or with any real estate development, you run out of land or you run out of space for doing that. But that which we've seen from the marketplace so far demonstrates that there's a desire to want to do this. Again, it's going to be a lot of a timing issue and who's going to have the payload that fits specifically. Our satellites, which are predominantly smaller than, say, an FSS satellite, you can understand that payload would be unique. But we get global coverage versus, an FSS, which would be a larger payload potentially, but it would be higher up and more weight and power associated with that. So it's going to have its differences, but again, at the end of the day, real unique and real interesting opportunities for us now.
It's certainly very exciting, as is your entry into the M2M space, and I'm sure the viewers are curious to hear more about what's happening there and what the future will be.
Sure. M2M is another space that we're real excited about it. Again, I think it goes back to the power of our network, having a network that reaches every inch of the globe, true pole-to-pole coverage, the oceans, the air. You can understand that companies, which are very used to having control of their assets under cellular coverage, also now want it being covered in areas where cellular isn't an option. We like to say that it's interesting that approximately 10% of the world's land mass is covered by cellular. Well, that means that there's an addressable market of 90% out there, other places where cellular doesn't go. I think as you see the applications that companies are running right now, and I don't care if this is a shipping company wanting to locate a container or understand the cargo that container has on it. It could be humidity inside of a reefer box on a ship. That's of value to someone in the information flow of that, as well as we have applications where remote windmill sites where you need to get telemetrics and data off those windmills. Well, there's no other way in the middle of the ocean where some of these are that you can get that connectivity to. So it's pretty much an unlimited application layer that we see there, and the opportunities we see there also are just coming on a day-to-day basis. So we're real excited about that, and we think, again, based upon our price performance, we got a great latency story that goes along with this packet size. From an industry standpoint, we really think we have the product to beat there.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today and for being on the program.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this.